Welcome to the Effortless English Show with the world's #1 English teacher, AJ Hogue, where AJ's more than 40 million students worldwide finally learn English once and for all, without the boring textbooks, classrooms, and grammar drills. Here's AJ with a quick piece to help you learn to speak fluent English effortlessly.
I'm AJ Hogue, the author of Effortless English. Learn to speak English like a native. Go to effortlessenglishclub.com. That's where you are trained. I train you. I help you. I train you to speak English fluently, to speak English powerfully, to speak English confidently, to speak English effortlessly. With my VIP program, join, commit, and don't quit. Commit, don't quit at effortlessenglishclub.com. effortlessenglishclub.com. Welcome. Happy Independence Day. American Independence Day. Let's see. Is it still Independence Day in America? Or has it changed? It's 7 a.m. So no, it's now July 5th. But yesterday in America was Independence Day. Yesterday was Independence Day. July 4th. Probably most of you know this, right? Independence from the British. So I thought today would be a good time to talk about the topic of independence. Talk about independence in general in our personal lives, like, our personal independence. Of course, we have talked about financial independence before. That's part of it. But there are other elements of independence. Now, this value, might say virtue, of independence is a very strong American one, traditionally a very strong American one. One that Americans have emphasized. Another way to say it is self-reliance. Self-reliance. There's a very famous essay with that title, American essay by Ralph Waldo Emerson called Self-Reliance. My favorite writer, Thoreau, wrote a lot about this topic of self-reliance. So independence, self-reliance. What does this mean? It means you rely on yourself. You take care of yourself. And what it means, it's the opposite of being a parasite, right? What the opposite is someone who is too dependent, who is a parasite, who just takes and takes and takes and takes from others, who needs other people to take care of them, who expects other people to give them everything or give them most things, who's lazy, who doesn't want to take care of themselves. And, traditionally, Americans hated that. Nowadays, unfortunately, we have a lot of fake Americans, and the value has changed quite a lot. A lot of them have this same parasite mentality. A lot of parasites in America now, but there's still some of the traditional Americans who still value this self-reliance and independence. And it's one of the things I like about America. It's one of my favorite American values, something I do like about my country, that emphasis on independence and self-reliance. I think it's a very good and healthy one. We're live on YouTube today with most of our regulars. Is Ibrahim Ali Miso-san. Nice name. Vladislav says, Happy Independence Day. Thank you, Vladislav. That's nice. Hi from Panama, says Alex Martinez. All right, In, good to see you. So I'll come back and I'll say hello, and we'll talk, and we'll go with the comments and questions in a minute. Let me just talk about this topic really quickly. Now, I mentioned that I think this is one of the strongest points, one of the best values, American values, traditional values, this idea of self-reliance, independence. So much of it, and why? Why is this important? How did this develop? Why did it develop in America? Other places too, of course, but in America. Well, because America was a frontier country. It was a frontier country, right? People came from, in the beginning, mostly England and Scotland, Britain. So it was British colonies, 13 in the beginning, 13 British colonies. And can you imagine? Imagine how difficult that life was, because no airplanes, right? They came over on wooden ships. They didn't know much about the land or the food or the plants or the country. They didn't know much at all. There was nothing there. Just Indian tribes, Native American tribes. Some were friendly and some were not. A lot of those Indian tribes were very warlike, and they attacked and killed the colonists, and they attacked and killed each other a lot. And there were a lot of wars between the Indians, the different tribes. So it was a dangerous, dangerous thing. Of course, coming over, there were diseases, especially the ships. Just the ships were not healthy, right? They're on these little small ships for a long time with a lot of people. It was not a healthy environment. A lot of people died on the trip coming over. One of my ancestors, my first ancestors, there were two that came over. You know, the man who was named William Hogue came from Scotland back in the 1600s. And he met his wife on the ship, but his wife's parents both died during the trip. So it was a dangerous thing, and then when they arrived, it was dangerous, especially the early colonists. But then what happened, of course, is that, of course, as a frontier country, Americans continued to move, right? Continued to move west. And every time they moved west, again, you know, they were going into new lands, very dangerous. They didn't know much about it. Again, you know, fighting. There were Indian wars, these Native American wars through the whole thing. They had to fight these tribes the whole way to establish the United States. Of course, the cowboys in the Old West, it's a very famous story, right? Lots of people know because of the movies. But it was dangerous. Just imagine how dangerous it was compared to now. Now we can travel so easily most places in the world, far less dangerous. And they were not just tourists. They were leaving their entire life, leaving everything behind. Everything, their country, their families many times, everything. So you can imagine, they could not be parasites, okay? Everybody was fighting to survive, fighting to succeed, fighting to create this new country, and it was hard work. So this idea of independence, that you have to take care of yourself. You can't be weak. You can't be a parasite. You can't expect everyone else to take care of you, because everyone else has to work hard too. Because to survive, everyone had to contribute. Everyone had to work hard. Everyone had to take care of themselves and be strong and independent. That's why that was such a strong value, how it became such a strong value, this idea of independence in the United States. That's why. That's why. Now, of course, we have to balance it. The one, maybe I would say, weak point, there's a little bit of a negative side to it. Especially more recently. I think in the past, not so much, but more recently, sometimes we forget the other part of this. Remember in the book, 7 Habits, right? That he talked about independence is the first thing, self-reliance. Take care of yourself, become a good person, a virtuous person, be a strong person, learn how to be independent. But that's only the first half. The other half is interdependence, or contribution. That's where now we have teamwork. Now you have everybody on the team is independent. Everybody on the team is strong. Everybody on the team is giving and can help. But now you're cooperating. Everyone's helping each other. That's interdependence. And we need both. And indeed, the early Americans needed both also to survive. They could not survive alone. They needed to be strong and independent, but they also needed each other. They needed strong families. They needed good friendships. They needed strong communities. And they did. These things were very, very important also. That's why they had the militias. This is where the famous American love of guns comes from, because the Americans decided we can't depend on the government. We can't trust the government to protect us. We have to protect ourselves. So everybody should have a gun, and we should all cooperate together. And then if the Indians attack, or criminals attack, or bandits attack, then we all will fight together. And of course, later, they fought the British. They fought the British Army, the British Empire. So it was both, and you need both sides. And this is the important point I want to talk about today in our modern life, is that, again, just kind of a review of what Stephen Covey said. Number one, we have to make ourselves strong independently. Individually, we want to be as good as we can, as virtuous as possible, as strong as possible. We want to take care of ourselves. We don't want to be like a child and someone else has to take care of us all the time. That's acting like a child. We don't want that. We want to be strong and independent, successful, confident. Makes us happier, makes us more successful. But then we also want the other side. When we have all of this, when we're strong and confident, well, then we want to give. We want to help others. We want to cooperate with other people. And of course, when you cooperate, you want your team, your group, you want everybody to be independent. You want everybody in the group to contribute, right? If you have a team, just imagine sports. If you have a team, you want every player to be good at something, right? Every player needs to contribute to the team, needs to help the team in some way. If you have a player that does not help at all, they're just weak and they make everybody feel worse and they're just take, and they suck the energy from the group and they bring down the motivation, that's a bad team member. Nobody wants that. No, it doesn't matter. Any sport, nobody wants that person on the team. They want to kick them off the team. Get off the team, right? You're a team, you're cooperating, you're helping each other, you're playing together, but everyone expects every team member, every individual must contribute to the team somehow. Some maybe in small ways, some in big ways. Right? The coaches have to contribute. The players contribute. Everybody, every member of the team must contribute, must help the team in some way. They must be strong and good at something, so they are helpful, so they are useful. So this is how they go together: independence and interdependence. Independence, self-reliance, and cooperation, teamwork. Even in a family, this is true. Even in a family. With your children. Most parents don't think of this, but I think it's important. Not just for the parents, it's important for the children. Now, of course, little babies, they are totally dependent. Okay, they're completely, totally dependent. They can't contribute much, although hopefully they contribute some happiness to you. But later, as children get a little older, even just 3 years old, something like that, you should start to teach them to contribute to the family. Let them do little small things. Let them help you clean up the room. Let them help you make food a little bit, just a little. Let them help you with little jobs. Let them help you with grocery shopping. These little small things. Are they really helping much? No, but you're teaching them a contribution mindset. And this helps them. They feel part of the family. They feel like, I'm important too. I'm also helping. I help mom and dad. I'm also part of the family. I also am contributing. I'm useful to the group, to the family. Right? This is important and start very young. Then when they're older, they're not just spoiled brats. They're not just thinking, give me, I want, and then just go crazy every time they don't get what they want. Right? There are a lot of, we call it spoiled or entitled. There are a lot of children now who have this idea that they're just totally spoiled. They just think that the parents are their servants. They think of the parents almost like they're slaves, like parents must give them everything they want. They expect everything, and they give nothing. This is their mindset. It's a bad mindset. It will not help them as adults. It makes them weak, and it makes them bad people. They're not virtuous. So by having your children, even at a young age, doing little jobs, helping in little ways, even just symbolically in the beginning, it helps. Of course, it makes a happier family. It makes happier parents. And it will all actually make stronger and happier children too. They will feel more confident. They will feel more useful. They will feel like their lives are more meaningful. They'll really feel like they're part of a team, part of the family. And in the past, this was not an option, not a choice. In the past, say again, like early America, you had these farmers. The children helped on the farm at a young age. At a young age, children, they were expected to help. They didn't just sit around doing nothing all day, demanding things from their parents. They had to help. They helped their mom and their dad. They helped their mom and their dad with the animals, with the plants, with the farming, with the housework. They had little jobs and they helped out quite a lot. You can read books written back in the 1800s, 1700s, and you'll see this. It was normal. So they were part of the family. They were useful parts of the family. And this is very, very, very healthy. We're too scared to have our children work. We're too focused on school. And, you think that they like school's their job, but it's not. they really should be contributing in your family, in your home. That's far more important than homework or schoolwork, because that gives them a mindset, number one, of being independent and self-reliant, and also gives them a mindset of contributing to family, contributing to others, not just taking, not being parasites. So for all these reasons, independence and interdependence, they go together. They're not opposites. Sometimes people focus on one and they forget the other one, but really they go together very well, and you need both, right? If you don't have independence, then you have a bad team. It means everybody on the team is weak and lazy, so the whole team will be bad. So if you just focus on teamwork only, that's not good, because each individual needs to be good. If you only focus on independence only, well, then you have a lot of lonely people, and it's less effective. One person alone, even if they're very good, they're not as effective as many people working together well. So they both help. We both need them. We need them both, rather. And they're both excellent virtues that go together. All right, let's go to our comments and questions live. Oh, by the way, I did a walk and talk today for the audio podcast listeners. So you should subscribe to my audio podcast. I did a walk and talk. I talked more about the Camino de Santiago and my plans to do it again in the future, soon. Soon means a couple years. And I talked a little more about Gab and the changes happening at Gab and some other cool things happening. So subscribe to my audio podcast. That's only for audio podcast listeners, no video. Surya Chauhan says, children can learn so many things by contributing time in household works. Absolutely, yes, they can. They should. Of course, you don't need to make them slaves. Treat them well. There's a balance, but overall, yes, absolutely. Tony Robbins quote from Aryan. Tony Robbins said, only those who have learned the power of sincere and selfless contribution experience life's deepest joy, true fulfillment. A nice quote from Tony. So he's saying that even if you are individually successful, super successful, let's say you're super rich and whatever it is, whatever else you think is successful, that you still will not experience deep happiness until you are really contributing to other people. You're part of a group, giving, sharing. He's right. Yassine says today's Algerian Independence Day. Oh, interesting. So it's July 5th, I guess. Pretty cool. Mahad says, you're right. We should give some responsibility to our children. Yes, well said. We should. Where is the audio podcast? Asked Bamed. You need a podcasting site or app. I'll give you let me see. Just go to my website, effortlessenglishclub.com/ right? That's the line, right? The line that's kind of forward line, /podcasts with an S. PODCASTS. Podcasts. effortlessenglishclub.com/podcasts. On that page, I have links to several apps. You can just choose one. There are many, 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 many. Dharani Kandala says, happy belated Independence Day to Americans. Thank you. I'm probably the only American on the podcast, on the show right now, but thank you very much. Someone else asked about the audio podcast. So again, effortlessenglishclub.com/podcasts with an S. Lots of people asking about the audio podcast. Okay, well, I hope you got it. Did you get it? I hope you got it. I love your voice. So clear, says Tan Bakvan. Thank you. Very nice. I'm glad you like my voice. If you didn't like my voice, you probably wouldn't be watching, right? Or listening. Cleefy says, you're right, Coach. Even if we educated our kids to be independent and contribution, screens make our kids lazy and occupied all the time. Yeah, no screens. No screens for my children. None. No screens. Twan says, how you prepare your children when they start to make friends with other kids. Those kids start to spoil your children with phones and belittle your children for not having those things. Well, first of all, I'm the father, so I'm the boss. So it's a rule, and it's just, I'll explain why. I'm a nice boss, but it's still the rule. They're not adults, so you have to be strong sometimes as a parent. Too many parents now are weak. They're weak. They're afraid that their children will be upset. Sometimes your children will get upset, okay? Sometimes they're going to get angry. Sometimes you will make decisions, and they won't like it. Tough, okay? My parents did that to me too, okay? Now I'm adult, I understand. At the time, I would yell and cry and scream and argue, and but of course, now looking back, I realize they were making good decisions, and I was a child, and I didn't know. So, too many parents worry about this stuff. Oh, what if my kids are unhappy? What if they get upset? Well, so what? So what? They're going to get upset. So what? The other thing is, I'll be careful with who they are friends with, the kind of people they're around. They're not going to be in school. They'll be homeschooled. So that's going to solve 90% of the problems. And, other kids, I'll also teach my kids to be strong. I'm going to raise them to be strong and independent. They're not going to get bullied. Teach them how to deal with that so that some other kid tries to make fun of them, they'll punch them in the face. All right. I'm only half joking. Yeah, exactly. The Roman Empire was built because its people worked hand in hand. They cooperated. Right, the ancient Romans had a very strong virtue called duty to Rome, duty to the Roman Empire, right? And they during their strongest time, at the end, of course, this got weak, and that's why they collapsed. But for a very long time, this idea of duty to Rome, their duty to Rome, meaning they had a duty, they had an obligation to contribute to Rome. And why? Because, well, they realized everyone benefited, right? When they all worked hard for Rome, then they all were more safe, they all had more money, they all had more success, they all had better lives. So they did not like parasites. Again, later at the end, of course, things changed, but for quite a long time, they hated this idea of parasites, and they had this quite the opposite idea of a strong duty, a strong obligation to contribute to Rome, their nation. And I agree with Christy. Parents who spoil their children are not showing love. It's the opposite. They will do harm for them in the long term. That's exactly right. It's more about, I think, weakness. Weakness and maybe selfishness on the parents' part when they spoil their children. Because they're not thinking long term. They're not thinking of the child's long term, benefit. I think mostly they're just tired, and they don't want to listen to the child scream, and they think, oh, I'll give him everything, and then he'll be happy. But it doesn't work, because then they become even more spoiled, and then they cry and complain even more. The more you show weakness as a parent, the worse their behavior gets. It gets worse and worse and worse. See, the thing is, like what Tron's comment, what you guys don't understand, is that when you're a strong and fair, right, and loving and kind, of course, but also a strong parent, your children learn to respect you more. They actually will argue with you less. They actually will fight with you less. They'll complain less. When you're weak, when you're not a good leader to them, when you're not a good coach to them, then they don't respect you, and then they will just say bad stuff to you and scream and cry, and I see it all the time. When I see children behaving very badly, it's the parents are weak, not strong. The strong, clear parents get much more respect. So it's kind of this is a wrong idea that too many people have, that, if I have rules, then the children will be really upset. It's the opposite. Okay? Of course, they're never happy all the time. Neither are you. Vladislav says, I guess most Japanese people manage to be both independent and contributive. Yes, indeed. Now, in terms of the values, which one do they stress? So Americans put more emphasis on independence, and Japanese put much more emphasis on contribution and cooperation. They both have both, right? But historically, traditionally, the Japanese have a very strong focus on contribution in the group, and Americans have a very strong focus on independence. So it's just which one is stressed more, and in that way, they're quite different. Rosary, I can't answer this. I don't know. Political. I'm from Kurdistan. What should we do to become independent and rescue our country? I don't know the details. Just keep fighting and never stop. That's my general thing. You got to fight and fight and fight and never stop. Well, Teammate says effortlessenglish.com, effortlessenglishclub.com also. Very useful for improving your skill and knowledge. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Very nice of you. Appreciate it. Yeah, Lisa with a very good point that connects to our book club and our movie club. To achieve freedom and independence, we must free our minds. We must first free our minds. Yeah, that is the first step of independence, really. Free our minds from various programs that we or others implanted within us. Perfectly said. That's right. That is exactly right. Yep. Well, Dalal says, right, this generation's hard to control because they're used to having everything they want, but I like their intelligence. They fix any problem in the phones or iPads. Yeah, overall, right. Of course, they're individuals, but yes, there is a kind of entitled, spoiled attitude among some. Depends, of course. They're quite good with technology, but that's not everything. It's our jobs. It's the job of the older generation to be good parents, good coaches, good mentors, good teachers, and good models, good role models. We can't just talk about it. We have to show it, right? We got to live it and show it. That's what's most influential. And believe me, I think a lot of young people really want this. They want it. Coffee Ya. Hi, I'm from Thailand. Hello, you have a coffee shop? Cardo says, AJ, I have a question. Do you have a TV inside your house? No. Do you think having a TV or other screens helps children? No. So like I said, my children, no screens. They will not use computers. They will not use iPads. They will not use phones until maybe high school age, something like that. But certainly not when they're elementary school age. There's no reason for them to do that. And in general, no, we don't have a TV. I don't like TV. I hate it. Find it boring. I have a computer. Yeah, Marjan says, I think the problem is with parents, they overprotect their children. I was the same raising my kid. I was so blue-pilled in that time. Yeah, so, right, I know. It's too far. This is just the problem is that you can do both. This is, again, the problem that schools especially can create where we think in, it's called binary thinking. It means only two choices. And so many parents, they think, well, I want to be sweet and kind and loving and take care of my children and be really sweet to them. Of course. But, the word or is the problem. Or I have to be tough and a strong, firm coach and have clear rules and teach them virtue and expect very good behavior and expect them to contribute and to be polite and well-behaved. Discipline, right? Mental discipline, family discipline. And the problem is too many, especially younger parents now, think they have to choose. They choose one. And usually they choose the one of being loving. They think, oh, if I'm loving and kind, I can't also be strong. But that's wrong. You can be both, and you must be both. You must be both. You must be both. You must be both strong and firm and a great coach and guide and loving and kind. Both. Both, not one. You don't choose one. Just discipline is also terrible because then you're just hard and you're not, they don't feel any love from you, right? So I mean, there are some parents like that, I guess, who are just, they're like, in the military or something, and there's no warmth, there's no love, there's no sweetness, there's no playfulness. That's not good either, of course not. That's terrible. But you can do both. You can do both. And you should do both, and, we should do both. All of us should do both. That includes me. So we just have to be careful. This idea of, where we try to think that two things are opposites. They're not really opposites. Being a firm and having discipline and a code in your family and being a great leader and teacher is not the opposite of love and kindness and sweetness. They go together. Just like independence and interdependence. They're not opposites. They go together. You need both. The law says if I tell my children to read, they think I'm an old-fashioned mom. So, who cares? So what if they think you're an old-fashioned mom? Just say, yeah, I am. Read. So, doesn't matter. Tuan says, are you proud of your country's history? I mean, you're before the invasion of Vietnam. Yes, of course I am. Yes, I am. Quite proud of American history. It's quite a amazing history, the history of the United States. Look, every country has bad things. Vietnam's done some pretty evil things, too, in their history. With the communist government right now, in fact. Every country's there's blood and guts and death in every country's history. And this includes the Indians, the American Indians that everybody, sometimes people try to say, like they were hippies or something, like these little hippies that, and the evil Europeans came and just killed them for no reason. The Europeans did invade. They did. But those Indians were not sweet, nice, and loving hippies, okay? Find some real books about their history. They had bloody, terrible wars. They tortured each other. They did all kinds of horrible stuff too. Every country has this, okay? So don't let anyone say your country's bad just because sometime in your history, there were blood and wars and invasions. That's human history everywhere in the world. So it's part of human history. It's part of our ancestors. Our ancestors had hard lives. And some of them had extremely bloody, dangerous, terrible times they lived through. Wars and disease and disasters. So we have to respect that. I respect it. I respect those early Americans. They were tough. They were much tougher than we are. Haha, Music World with a nice, is it true the Vikings found America? Well, there is actually some evidence of this. So Christopher Columbus is the famous one in terms of the European explorer, finding the Americas, we really should say, because he found, all of the Americas, right? As far as we know. But there's very, very, very good evidence now that long before Columbus, Leif Erikson and a group of Vikings found America, discovered the Americas. Europeans found the first Europeans that were actually Vikings because they went to Greenland and Iceland. So they settled in Iceland, then they settled in Greenland, and then there's some evidence, physical evidence, and also in writing some of the Viking stories that a group of them went to the west, somewhere in Canada now, maybe Newfoundland, and there they met Native Americans and they fought some of them, Indian tribes. But why did they not become famous? Because then they left. They didn't stay. They didn't settle. They didn't create a colony. At that time, it was too far and too difficult and too dangerous. So they just left and decided not to stay there. And some of them got killed, you know. But yes, I think that if you want to argue about which Europeans visited North America first, yes, I think the Vikings were there before Columbus. But of course, Columbus was bigger. Columbus was funded by, you know, the Spanish king and queen. And after Columbus, you know, there were more and more trips in the colonies. So, you know, he gets good credit for a good reason. Columbus was Italian, but it was the Spanish who really were the leaders in that. Yeah, this is scary. Was it Manib says, hey, Jay, what do you think about putting chips, like computer chips, inside humans' body? It's a time of control. Where's the independence? I know, right? They're actually this kind of technology. You see it in the media that this is maybe coming. And of course, like science fiction already predicted this. Don't do it. My advice would be if it comes, don't do it. Don't let them put any devices inside your body. Yassine China says, there's a book that says that only 2% of Americans made America strong. What do you think? Is that interesting? Well, I think it's 2%, something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's a small number who actually fought the British, actually had a gun and, you know, joined a militia or the Continental Army and actually really fought against the British. And something like 90% did not. Maybe they helped a little bit, like with food or support, but they didn't actively fight. So this is true in most wars and revolutions, especially revolutions where you only need a small percent to really actively fight and you can win. You don't need the majority of people. That's good news for some of us, right? But, you know, I think it's more than 2%. I think a lot, you know, there are so many people who did, even in their small ways, said, you know, all the people who went to the West and created farms. Well, maybe they didn't do any huge thing, but that was part of creating America too. So I think it's bigger than 2%. Mido Met says, can adults learn 2 languages fluently at once? I think so. In theory, you could. But, you know, you have to split your time then each day learning them. But yeah, I mean, I think theoretically you could. We should. I think, though, you know, most of the polyglots I know, meaning people who speak a lot of languages, right? Not just 2, but 3, 4, 5, people like Steve Kaufman. Most of the ones I know that I've watched their videos and things that they do one at a time. Most of them do one at a time. Like Steve, I'm pretty sure, does one language at a time. He focuses on one for a while, and he gets good at that one. Then he goes to the next one, then to the next one. I've never seen him talk about learning 2 at the same time. I might be wrong about that, but I've never seen it. So I think that, you know, maybe, you know, that's good to copy those guys because they know what they're doing. This is nice. Paulsa says, hi from India. May God bless you. Also read your book. Such a wonderful book. In my surroundings, I have no one to speak English with. How to practice. Online. Lots and lots of listening, lots and lots of reading. When you want to chat with people, you know, follow me on Gab, and you can meet other Effortless English members and make a Skype group, and you can practice chatting with each other. That's a good way to do it. Gab.com/AJ Hogue. Follow me at AJ Hogue on Gab.com, and then I'll retweet if you say, AJ, I want to meet other people to practice with. I'll retweet, I'll repost. What's it called? A gab? Re-gab your comment, and you can find others. Kalyan says, could you create a group on Telegram for Effortless English? I have one. It's my name, AJ Hogue, but I'm not active right now. Like I said, I just too many social media. I'm trying to reduce my social media to mostly just a Gab. Yeah, Bhavana says independence is not about freedom of doing anything. That's Luciferianism. Do what you will. Do anything you want. Even evil. That's not what we're talking about. Independence is the capability of balancing ourselves between good and bad means of controlling ourselves. Yes, it's about, like, that's why I actually like this word self-reliance. I think it's more descriptive. It's more accurate. The word self-reliance, because it tells you exactly the meaning. You rely on yourself, right? You take care of yourself. You are able to take care of yourself, to rely on yourself. It has the idea of, self-strength, self-confidence. So that's what we're talking about, right? We're not talking about just do anything you want. Doesn't matter if you hurt anybody. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. That's not what we're talking about. That's not independence. That's not self-reliance. No. In fact, independence and self-reliance require a lot of self-discipline. A lot. You have to learn. That's one of the first steps is to control yourself. If you can't control yourself, you have no freedom. Then you're just a slave to your emotions. You're a slave to reacting to what other people do. So the ability to control yourself is very important, to be free, to be independent, to be self-reliant. Elena says, hey, from Republic of Moldova. I'm late today. Hey, Elena. One of my grandmother's families is from Moldova. Her last name was Moldovan. Tiago, interesting. The commemoration of the American goal in the Women's World Cup drew attention. The player made a reference to English tea. There's a connection between English tea and American independence. There is indeed. It's a famous episode, the Boston Tea Party. I can explain it briefly. So one of the reasons, there were many, of course, but one of the reasons the American colonies, it wasn't America at that time, right? It was actually 13 colonies. Each one was independent, but they were working together, cooperating and independent. But the American colonies were angry because the British government was taxing them a lot, high taxes. And they were taxing tea. This was one of the big things they taxed a lot was the tea. And so the Americans, symbolically, some Americans in Boston one night, I think it was, they got onto a British ship, and they took the tea and they threw it into the water, right, to destroy it, and as a protest against the tax. And this was, this is one of the early actions of independence. To become, it started getting this revolutionary mindset going in America. It's funny, some Englishmen did not like her action. It's funny, people always look on the downside. Well, we don't care about the British, do we? Let them complain. We won. All right, let's see. Yeah, Ozma with a good point about children again. First, it's important with children to give caring and cover them with love, right? Especially when they're little. That's all you can do, really. Then give them responsibility. That's right. You increase the responsibility little by little. And they love and prize about the work they've done, showing your caring. They do. Again, like I have this great little nephew here in Japan. And, one of the things he loves to do is help his grandmother in the garden. He loves outdoors. You guys have heard me talk about him before. He loves plants and bugs and things. But he loves to work. He really loves, and he's a good worker. He's like 8 years old, and he'll go to his grandmother's house, and his grandmother will go into her garden, and he loves to help cut the plants and get the weeds, pick up the weeds, and he's not just being lazy. I mean, he's not just playing. He's really working. He's really helping her, and he's a good worker, and he's very focused, and you can tell, it's meaningful to him. And, of course, his grandmother is very happy and always grateful. It's a good example of that, right? He's contributing. He's doing something useful, helpful in the family, and it gives him meaning. And you can do this, too. You can find things. You don't have to make your children do the same thing. you can kind of, customize it, right? You might maybe have one child who really likes food and wants to help with cooking. And so you can get them helping in the kitchen. But maybe you have another child like him who you get them out doing more outdoor work, and if you have a house or a garden. And another one maybe can help clean. Maybe maybe they help you go shopping. You see the idea, right? So you can kind of fit it to their personalities too, and their strong points. Sharif Taha says, can you arrange for podcasts or live shows about parenthood? I think it'd be great importance to bring up free generations. Yeah, I'll talk about this topic in future shows. Maybe, I don't know, we could do parent clubs. We've got book club. We've got movie club. We could do parent club. I don't know, once a week or once a month or something. I'll think about it. But I'll certainly talk about the topic because I'm interested in it. I'm a new parent. And like many new parents, I'm quite enthusiastic about it. So I'm happy to talk about it. And we can all, I know lots of you are parents and have much more experience than I do. I'm sure we could get a lot of great comments and suggestions from you all, Effortless English Family. And some of you are not parents yet. And this would also be useful for you because you could get maybe some good ideas and advice from myself and from our other great members who are experienced parents. Because, some of you, I know, are experienced parents. You've already raised children to adulthood successfully and have years and years and years of experience. So you could teach me. I have a lot to learn still. Yeah, Yashar with a nice point. To reach our independence, we must love our own country, we must love our nation, and we mustn't argue with other nations. Well, see, this is the same idea, right? We can even think of this same idea, independence and cooperation. We could think of this ideally, I guess this is a little utopia kind of, but still, ideally as a value, as a goal, that even whole countries, we could think of this. We want every country to be unique and independent, right? I want Germany to be German, uniquely German. I want Brazil to be Brazilian. I want America to be American. I don't want them all to be the same. I want them to be independent, strongly independent, with their own strong cultures. And I also, of course, want world peace and interdependence, cooperation, so that all these independent, strong countries, each country taking care of its people and hopefully free and doing well, but also cooperating, not fighting each other, not killing each other, not insulting each other, working together. I think that's what most of us want, right? I think that's what most normal people want. If only we could get these world controllers to do this, because that's what most people really want. Yeah, Merrick with some good questions. Do you have to worship what others have? Right? Wanting what it's called, greed, coveting. Do you have to want what they want? Can I reject scientific theories? Can I defend my opinion and take care of my own autonomy? How important is the feeling of being accepted to you? Well, right. It's the fear of rejection that causes most people to become dependent. They're afraid to live happy lives and independent lives because they worry, oh my God, what will other people think? It's too bad. It's unfortunate. I'm going to just jump down. You guys are typing fast again. Elena is saying, that's awesome. Your grandmother's from the Republic of Moldova. Well, not her family is. She was not born there, but like her ancestors are Moldovan. And that's her. Her family name is Moldovan. So they came from Moldova, and they gave them that family name, or they chose that family name when they came to America. I don't remember what year they came. This is not the one that turns 100. That's Hogue. That's my dad's mom. My father's side of the family. It's my other grandmother, who is 95 now. I've got old grandmoms. Okay, a few more and then I gotta go. What's my education? AJ, what's your education level? Because you're intelligent. Well, education and intelligence are different, okay? You can be very intelligent but not go and do a lot of school. You can be very educated without school, right? I mean, there are people who are self-educated. In fact, let's think, we're talking about Independence Day. People like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, these famous early Americans. They were self-educated. How did they? They were super educated, much more educated than Americans now. Much smarter, much better. You can just read their writing, okay? They read better books, more deep books. They were more intelligent and amazing, their education level. But they were Henry David Thoreau, another one, my favorite American writer. They were mostly self-educated. They learned just basic reading from their parents. And then after that, they just read and read and read lots of books themselves. Very independent, homeschooled, and they were extremely intelligent and well-educated. So school is the opposite of this. School creates mediocre. School creates people who are not very educated, who are poorly educated. So I think you're probably asking what my degrees. I have 2 master's degrees, but to be totally honest, that's not why I'm intelligent, and it's not why, any intelligence I have, any education, the best parts of my education were independent. It's from books I've read. I did not learn and read all these great books in university or in grad school. I did those for money, okay? I did them for jobs, all right? At the time, I did them. I needed the master's degree was a way to get a higher paying job. But in terms of education, not really, not that great. So don't confuse these two things, because education is mostly what you do yourself. Mostly what you do yourself. Yes, and Lisa with a good point. Again, I really like to help others, but it's only possible for those who want it. Amen. There's a quote: before you heal someone, ask him if he's willing to give up the things that made him sick. Hippocrates. Yeah, that's an excellent. Most people don't want advice. I've learned this in my life. Most people don't want we call it unsolicited advice. Unsolicited, meaning they didn't ask for it. So telling people stuff that they don't ask for, like trying to give someone advice, tell them what to do, but they don't really want it, then most people are not going to listen. So you think you're helping them, but you're really not helping them. Now, if they really beg you for help, that's something different. Like this show. Only people who want to hear me listen to the show. If you don't want to hear me, then you don't watch. So it's not unsolicited. But like say I have family members, for example. I have some family members who have some problems in their lives. I know I could help them. I know I could. Like, for example, just their weight. They're fat. They're unhealthy. They're sick. I know I could help them with fasting and different eating and exercise. I know I could coach them and help them, but they don't want it. They don't want it. They didn't ask me, and I know if I tried to tell them, they really wouldn't listen. So I don't do it. And so Lisa's got a great point about that. We contribute. There's many ways to contribute. We can contribute just by showing a good example, living a good, virtuous life. Then we're a good example to others. Maybe we inspire others. We can help people who specifically really want it. But I agree, you should not. Thoreau wrote about this too. Don't force your help on other people. Don't try to help people who don't ask for it, who don't want it. So many people try to do this, and really they're not really trying to help. They're just trying to look like they're good people. They're kind of showing off in some ways. So I think it's really good advice. You'll become very frustrated if you try to help people who don't want it. If you try to teach people who don't want to learn, it's super frustrating and it's kind of pointless. Heisenberg. Kezang Dorji from Bhutan, if I remember right, says, if time permits, please show a live interview with students who have succeeded with your course. Yes, I'm going to do that. I've done it before. You can find some of my old YouTube I've YouTube videos. I interviewed some past students, but I'll do it again. Some are a little shy to be super public and have thousands of people watching, but some are not. So I'll get some less shy ones. Yeah, Ibrahim Sahib says, being a parent's not easy. Like so many people do nowadays, we need to first be independent and powerful. Yep, you want to be a good parent, to be a great parent, what you want to do is be strong and good yourself. Because the very best way, this is not just parenting, it's leadership, is that you show it. You live it yourself. And then the children or your team, whatever, they can see it in you. They see that you're doing it, and then they want to follow you. The less effective way is just to tell, right? Do this, but you're not doing it. So then they don't really respect you so much. They don't, right? So yes, making yourself virtuous and good and strong and self-disciplined. You can't be perfect, I know, but as good as you can. Well, then you're a good example. You're leading by example. And then when you say something, it has more power because they see, well, Dad really lives this. He's not just saying it. He really does this himself. So they are more likely to respect you. So for example, with the screens, if I walk around looking at my phone all day long, and with my children, and they see me all the time staring at my phone all day, well then, if I tell them no screens, what are they going to do? What are they going to think? Will they respect that? Of course not. They're not going to respect that. When they say, the first thing they'll say is, well, you do it all the time, Dad. And they would have a good point. So I have to set an example myself. As they get old, I use, for work, I do use phone and things, but I don't use it much even now. But once my children are a little older, I'm probably going to have a rule that during the daytime, while they're awake, I won't use it. Basically not at all, except just to take a phone call. But I'm not going to be staring on the phone doing apps and stuff. You gotta choose a virtuous life for yourself first. This is for all kinds of leaderships. Really, it's for all kinds. All right, a few more and then I gotta go. It's almost time to go. Sir, are you, I get this question all the time. Muzamil, are you American or British? American. Yes, Full Rage asks, is dealing with emotions part of independence? Is that Marcus Aurelius in your... I can't tell. Anyway, yes, emotional, what does Tony Robbins call it? Basically, emotional control, some level of emotional mastery. That's the word, emotional mastery. So not being a slave to your emotions. Most of us, of course, sometimes I get tired and then I get, upset and I lose my patience and I get maybe controlled by emotions for a while. But overall, you've got to gain more control over your emotions. That's part of independence. Yes, I would say for sure it is. For sure. Music world, another example. Abraham Lincoln was self-educated. Yes, he was. Taught himself to be a lawyer. Oh no, Elita with a traveling story. Yesterday I arrived in Istanbul and I have a travel surprise. I lost my baggage. You lost it or the airline lost it? With all the important things inside. But the good thing is I can listen to your podcast while waiting for my baggage to be found. So I'm guessing the airlines lost it. Oh no, that sucks. Well, enjoy the podcast. You're doing the right thing. These things happen when you travel sometimes. So, you got the clothes you're wearing. You can go buy a toothbrush if you need to. Go see Istanbul. Enjoy Istanbul. Listen to the podcast. It's a cool city. So go enjoy it. Yeah, like well said, Alonso Moreno from Lima, we should be independent. The country should be independent too, for sure. But we cannot forget our actions can help or damage others. So we are interdependent too. That's right. We're both. And this is true for groups. This is true for whole nations. We want strong nations that are independent and have their own cultures and all this. Absolutely, we do. And we also want peace and cooperation. And we want this for individuals as well. Yeah, like Vladislav says, I've experienced being given advice I didn't want. Recently, my cousin advised me to put a resume on a website to find a better job. It seems he cares about me, but I don't want to now. Yeah, exactly. None of us like it. Let's be honest. No one likes unsolicited advice because it feels like they're bossing you around. You didn't ask for it. It feels like they're treating you like a child a little bit. So I think it's one of my basic rules with friends and family that I try to avoid giving unsolicited advice. I try to avoid it as best I can. Now, occasionally I'll forget, but most of the time I just don't do it unless I'm asked, unless someone is asking for help and advice. Like my mom is asking me for advice to lose weight now. She's asking for, she's wants me to coach her. So I'm coaching her on fasting, helping her do fasting. And she's doing it and it's working and she's getting good results, which is great. I have other relatives. I've got uncles and aunts. Actually, one aunt also asked me for advice, and I'm starting to coach her a little bit with fasting, just by text messaging. But she asked me first. But, I've got a couple uncles. They're also overweight. My dad's overweight. They did not ask me. I know they don't want me to tell them, hey, you're fat, and you should fast. So I'm not going to say anything. Not going to say anything unless they ask for advice. I might talk about it. What I might do, sometimes what you can do, if you want to help someone, but you don't want to annoy them by giving them advice, again, a great way to do it is show a good example. So you can do something that would be helpful, and then you can talk about your own experience. So for example, with my dad, maybe a few times I'm talking about fasting. Oh yeah, I'm fasting. I lost 20 pounds in 1 month, and I'm feeling really great. And then we might talk about it. But we've talked about it a little bit, but he didn't ask me for advice. I know that means he doesn't want to do it. So I'm not going to tell him he should do it. But this is one way you can kind of open the possibility. So if there's someone you think needs help, there's someone you think you can help them, you do it first. You do it first and show them. And then just talk about your own experience. And then just see what they say. If they ask you for help, then you can help them. Great. If they don't, then just be quiet. Don't say anything more. That's my best advice to have good relationships with people. Are your parents alive? Yes, they are. Knock on wood. Thank God. N says, some parts of Iran, especially those near the border, don't feel they belong to Iran. They see themselves as independent or they're going to be independent. Do you think it's a good thing for a country? I think it's a good thing. I quite support all these independent movements. I think any group, decent-sized group that has kind of a more, their own kind of unique culture and background and beliefs and values, I say let them break away and become their own country. For example, in Spain, Catalonia, let Catalonia become independent. Let the Basques become independent. And by the way, I feel the same about my own country. America is not a united country anymore. America should not be one country anymore. America is an empire now, but not a nation. There's a difference. So I believe America. I believe the states. I think the original America was much better, where each state was independent, but they worked together. And I think I would love to see this happen again in America. Probably not each state. There probably will not be 50 different countries in North America. But I think certain parts of the country should become their own country. I think the West Coast, California, Oregon, and Washington should be an independent country. maybe 3 independent countries, or maybe they could all join and be one independent country. I think Texas should be its own country, independent. They began as an independent country. I hope again they will become independent. I think the South in the United States, the old Confederacy, the Southeast, should become an independent country. And the Northeast, a different country. And maybe the Midwest, the middle. So that's maybe America probably should be 4 or 5 different countries now, because the people don't like each other. They're totally different values. In fact, they hate each other now. People in California hate people in the middle of the country and in the South. And people in the South don't like them either. And they're trying to use power to force everybody else to live the same. So I think it's the better way is let people become independent. Let the groups. So like Kurdistan, I support Kurdish independence. They're a unique, their own group. They're their own people. Let them have their own country. You know? And that go any group, you know, of a decent size. That's my opinion, you know. I'm not super expert about it. I'm not passionate about this topic, but it's just my opinion. Ayub says, we have fasting in our religion. Since 1440 years ago, we fasted in the holy month of Ramadan. I know, Ayub, I know all about Ramadan. It just ended recently. We also have Shravan, a Sanatana Dharma fasting month coming up July 17th. I'll be fasting during that. Now traditionally, and still some Christian groups fast. I think in the past, Christians fasted much more, especially Catholics and Eastern Orthodox. I think Eastern Orthodox still fast quite a bit and has good, strong fasting traditions. The Catholic ones have become weaker, but I'd love to see them go back to that more again, this emphasis on fasting, because it's really such a great thing, so wonderful. Your eyes look like the ocean, someone said. That's really kind. Thank you. All right, guys, I got to go. Two more, and we're going to go. Evgeny says, true education is self-education. True discipline is self-discipline. Very well said. Nicely summarized. True education is self-education, independent education. What you learn yourself. You're the boss of your own learning. True discipline is self-discipline. You control yourself, not someone else controlling you. That's mind control, right? That's slavery. No, you control yourself. True discipline is self-discipline. I like that. Nice. All right. Marketer says, why Twitter and Facebook and many famous people in the media support homosexuality or gays? To weaken and destroy our families and culture, make us weaker and easier to control, provoke perversion. Look what happened before World War II in Germany. They did the same thing there. So it weakens and destroys the society when they promote this stuff. It's the transgender stuff. It's drugs. It's all the things. It's what we're learning in Brave New World. It's just one part of it. The homosexuality, pushing that. It's just part of pushing in general all the perverted sexual behavior and the sexuality of younger and younger and younger children, and the pedophilia and the weird transgender stuff and all of this, and the drug addictions. It's all part of the same strategy to make people slaves to sex and pleasure and perversion, and thus weak and easy to control. It destroys morale. It destroys families, completely destroys families. And then you're easy to control. That's why. quite clearly that's why. I mean, you should, what's your name again? Marketer KSA. You should join our book club, and you'll really learn the details of this, because we are learning exactly why this is happening right now in quite good detail. I think that's all, guys. For your nice little comment here from Emma. It's Emma. AJ, you're such a blessing in my life. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You are welcome, Emma. And thanks to all of you. Another nice show. I have baby duty. What does that mean? It means at night, I watch the babies all night. I'm up until 5 a.m. every night watching 2 little babies. And unfortunately, sometimes both, definitely one, does not sleep a lot. They cry a lot. I have to feed them all night and take care of them. My wife sleeps at night, and then I sleep in the daytime. And then she watches them in the morning, and then we both watch them in the afternoon. This is our system we have right now with our twin babies. So I've got to let my wife go to bed. She had a very long, tiring day today. Yesterday I had a really bad day, tiring day. And today it's her turn, so I need to go and let her get to bed. So lots of love to you guys. Thanks always. Remember, I've got a walk and talk on my audio podcast. I will upload that probably later tonight in a few hours, maybe early tomorrow morning when I get up or something. Before I go to bed, I'll add that. So audio podcasts, you should follow that too, and you'll get that extra one. I talk more about one of my favorite trips, the Camino de Santiago. Okay, lots of love to you. Follow me on Gab, AJ Hogue on gab.com. And as always, join my VIP program. Commit, don't quit, and you will speak English fluently, powerfully, and effortlessly at effortlessenglishclub.com. effortlessenglishclub.com.